Before Ghost in the Shell, before Dominion, before Appleseed, and before the name Shigeru Masamune became a name familiar to everyone, especially those who like this type of theme, here came Black Magic, a raw, grimy, and ambitious OVA that paved the entire legacy of one of the most influential authors who not only cemented the cyberpunk genre, but made it unfold and shape to his will. Ghost in the Shell is a name that basically everyone knows, even if they haven't watched it yet. If you don't know, my friend, you need to have a talk, but tune in here.
I think the girls with their nails done now.
If you have already developed your brain enough to know that things don't just appear out of nowhere and become successful overnight, you can already imagine that the mastery of Ghost in the Shell, both the manga and the first movie, wasn't created out of nowhere. It wasn't even the author's first work. Depending on your dedication, you may even know that Dominion and Appleseed previously came out at the same time. Dominion must be the work I mentioned the most here on the channel without making a video just for it, but anyway, both works perfectly show Masamune's idea, forming and developing. It's like it was a prototype of what was to come in the cyberpunk theme, and most people stop there, but of course, the story doesn't start with either of these two successful stories. If Dominion and Appleseed were the prototypes of Ghost in the Shell, Black Magic was the prototype of them all. Black Magic was not a manga itself, but a doujinshi, and Shigeru Masamune's first work officially, and straight away told the story of a society of technologies and technical things, even though it was created in the middle of the 80s. Philosophical themes underline the relationship of humanity with its environment, but since a large percentage of the cyberpunk theme was articulated by himself in the future, here you can see that the transition between sci-fi and the future cyberpunk was still happening, and this work leans much more into the sci-fi than the proper cyberpunk that we all know. But different from what happens today, back in the 80s, making a doujinshi was perhaps enough to catch the eyes of companies interested in giving a different work a chance, a work that perhaps would not reach a mainstream audience like this. Experimental works, and because of this era was well known as the golden age of OVAs, and here almost everything was fair game. Lego Movie with Phil Collins on the soundtrack, it exists, of course. A mini John Wick girl who is pushed from a building with enough floors to fit 2 of your mother, and then going through the underground with the impact, and with the explosion goes flying into the other side of the street in another building and coming out alive on top of everything. Of course, this exists too. By the way, I didn't expect so much text from an OVA like this, if you know what I mean, but people in the 80s were just built differently, right? But anyway, what was I talking about? Ah yeah, Black Magic received an OVA at that time. Despite not telling the same story as the doujinshi, Shigeru Masamune's name was highlighted by the entire entertainment community, creating future opportunities that would only happen because his name was linked to the creation of Black Magic. The OVA is much darker in quotes than the doujinshi, and already shows those things that you expect in cyberpunk. Absurd cities, buildings with entire ecosystems inside, insane vehicles that operate with zero fucks on safety, and of course, androids going crazy and doing a lot of shit. Watching this work, you can already clearly see the experiments that would define Ghost in the Shell in the future. Black Magic doesn't have much time to do something insane and well crafted, but what it can do is already very good. Technological weapons of war, artificial intelligence going nuts, and characters who are so ambiguous that they find themselves in the chaos of their own creations. Even though the story assumes many things out of nowhere, with some nonsensical decisions, like the main one seeing all the destruction of the android in the house just due to the sheer weight of the machine, a whole atmosphere of tension and all, and she goes there and sits comfortably on the sofa as if there was no chance of it still being there. Apart from those little things, everything is really neat, with very charismatic characters despite not being explored that much, and it also has a very interesting aspect in that they manage to humanize the soldiers a lot in a very cool way, giving weight to their work and eventually their deaths. And above all, it is a work that conveys a sensational feeling of a handmade animation of the time, that even though objectively, it's not an animation with the quality akin to Akira, it is still very beautiful for the simple fact that it was made in a similar time, and as a consequence of the creation process, people took longer to make it seen, and because of that, they paid more attention to the smallest details, that when you realize the only thing you can think about is, sheesh, they really didn't need to do that. Amazing. Basically, Black Magic M66 tells a story of a right person in the wrong place at the perfect time. A journalist named Shiberu trying to save a girl from a hairy Terminator. It has an atmosphere and an energy that, despite being very simple, has a very good feeling, even though it was probably made with the budget consisting of 2 bubblegums and the promise of a Red Bull. An OVA that was forgotten, but is definitely worth watching. If you have already seen this GIF before, yep, it came from here. But anyway, why does Black Magic matter so much? Because it is an OVA that not only shows the beginning of the career of a renowned author, but is also a work that shows the origin of stuff that nowadays we have the perspective of as being normal. You can see the DNA that later came to compose Appleseed, Dominion, and Ghost in the Shell, and the rest of the cyberpunk genre, the whole idea of a cybernetic utopia, and the whole existential techno-drama. Black Magic isn't perfect, it's a bit of potato sometimes, bit messy, not gonna lie. It's definitely a product of its team and social space at the time, but even so, when you watch it, it's obvious the dedication put into the work, and it is the same factor that served as a legal push for Masamune Shirow's future works, and of course also with the consolidation of that heavy and dirty futuristic theme that many of us love, a work that created the spark and helped shape the fire of cyberpunk aesthetics in anime, while also carrying the aesthetic of old anime masterfully. It may not be the best thing you will ever watch, but it will definitely be worth your time. It's sensational.